Maya Linton had built a following by writing the kind of posts people love to share: sharp, biting, unapologetic. On her blog, Glass Ceiling Breakers, she once wrote, "If divorced dads spent half as much time raising their kids as they do complaining about court, maybe they'd have a case." It had gone viral. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. She'd thought nothing of it after, just another post feeding the endless scroll. That was before the summons arrived. It was a Tuesday morning when the courier knocked. Maya opened the door in a t-shirt, coffee in hand. The man held out a thick envelope, her name printed in precise, unforgiving black. She signed without thinking, shut the door, and tore it open. The first words she saw were plaintiff versus Maya Linton. Her stomach dropped. She skimmed the rest, the words blurring: custody petition, temporary orders, financial disclosures. It wasn't satire, it wasn't theory. It was her life now, in Times New Roman, double-spaced, stamped with the seal of the Superior Court. She'd known her marriage to Daniel was ending. The silence in the house had grown so heavy it was almost physical. But she'd imagined a quiet split. Two adults shaking hands, dividing their things, and moving on. Instead, Daniel had filed first. And in doing so, he'd taken the narrative, and the children, into his control. By Thursday, her apartment was a war room. Files and notepads covered the table. Her attorney, a hawk-eyed woman named Evelyn Hart, sat across from her, flipping through the petition. "He's requesting sole custody for now," Evelyn said. "Standard in cases where one party alleges instability." Maya's chest tightened. Instability? I've never. Evelyn didn't look up. "He's citing your travel for speaking events, the late nights, the blog. Claims you've publicly mocked fathers, which could be framed as bias." Maya almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. It was a joke. A political point. In court, Evelyn said flatly, "Context is whatever the judge accepts." The first hearing was a week later. The courtroom smelled faintly of varnished wood and stale paper. Maya sat at the defendant's table, Daniel across from her in a navy suit, his attorney whispering in his ear. He wouldn't meet her eyes. The judge, a thin man with a voice like dry paper, called the case. Daniel's lawyer painted him as a steady, reliable parent, and Maya as an erratic figure, more invested in her online persona than her children. Maya clenched her fists under the table, willing herself to stay still. When it was her turn, Evelyn rose and dismantled point after point, but Maya could see it, the judge's pen tapping, the glance at the blog printout entered as evidence. By the end of the session, a temporary order was in place. Daniel would have primary custody. Maya, alternate weekends and one evening a week. The gavel fell, and something inside her cracked. She wanted to shout, to demand how a judge could know her worth as a mother from a single post, a few emails, and a stranger's summary. But the rules of the room were clear. Her voice was only allowed when someone else asked for it. That night, she drove back to her apartment and sat in the dark. Her phone buzzed with messages, friends asking how it went, followers tagging her in political threads, but she ignored them all. The silence now wasn't just between her and Daniel. It was between her and her children. Evelyn called the next morning. "We're appealing the custody order." "But Maya," she paused, her voice low. "This is going to get ugly. They've already subpoenaed your financial records. And they're digging." Maya leaned against the counter, her coffee gone cold. "Then we dig too." She didn't know then how far ugly could go. She would. Soon. The deposition room was too warm. Maya sat at the long table, a microphone clipped to her blouse, every sound amplified into the record. Across from her, Daniel's attorney, Malcolm Reeves, smiled like a man who'd already won. He began gently. "Mrs. Linton, would you say your blog represents your personal beliefs?" Maya's lawyer, Evelyn, shifted. "Objection." Vague. Reeves tilted his head. "I'll rephrase. Do you believe the statements you've made publicly about divorced fathers?" Maya felt the heat rise in her neck. "I believe in holding people accountable." It wasn't about, he slid a page across the table. Her own words, printed out, if divorced dads spent half as much time raising their kids as they do complaining about court, maybe they'd have a case. Those are your words? Yes, she said, voice even. And you don't see how a reasonable person could take that as evidence you hold bias against fathers in custody disputes? Evelyn jumped in. Objection. Argumentative. Reeves sat back, satisfied. The court reporter's keys clicked like tiny hammers, pinning every syllable into permanence. By the time the deposition ended, Maya felt wrung out, her throat raw. Outside, the winter air hit her like a slap. 2 weeks later, the custody trial began. The courtroom was packed, local reporters, curious law students, even a couple of her own followers who'd slipped in to watch. Cameras weren't allowed, but she knew the sketch artist's pencils would be busy. Reeves opened with a scalpel. He painted Daniel as the model parent, steady job, steady schedule, steady heart. Then he turned the blade. Maya was a brand, he said, one who profits from provocative statements that show a clear disregard for paternal roles. When Evelyn cross-examined, she pushed back hard. Isn't it true, Mr. Linton, that you traveled for work 5 days a week last year? Daniel shifted in his chair. Yes, but I arranged care, and isn't it true that care was provided primarily by your mother, not you? A ripple went through the room. Evelyn pressed harder, but Reeves kept objecting, chipping away at her momentum. On the second day, Reeves called his surprise witness. The man walked in tall, graying, wearing a simple black blazer. Maya recognized him instantly, Victor Shaw. He was the father she'd written about in a post 2 years earlier, a stranger whose public custody battle she'd dissected online. He took the stand. Ms. Linton wrote about me. She didn't know me, but she mocked me. Said I was using my kids as pawns. That post went viral. I lost my job over it. I couldn't get work in my field for a year. Evelyn objected. Irrelevant to these proceedings. Reeves countered smoothly. Goes to character, Your Honor. The judge allowed it. Maya sat frozen. The irony was a physical thing now, heavy as iron. When she finally testified, she spoke carefully. I regret the tone of that post. I didn't understand how it could hurt someone. Reeves didn't let go. And now? Do you understand? Yes, she said. The final day was the hardest. Reeves read from her financial disclosures, pointing out every luxury expense, every flight, every paid speaking gig, painting a picture of a woman more concerned with her career than her children. Evelyn fought back, showing her volunteer work at the school, her consistent support payments, but Maya could feel the weight of the judge's silence. When the ruling came, it was brief and brutal. Primary custody to Daniel. Alternate weekends and one midweek dinner for Maya. Legal costs to be split, though she owed more. The judge's voice was calm, but each word was a stone sinking in her chest. She walked out to the courthouse steps, the cold air slicing at her cheeks. Reporters surged forward, microphones out. Ms. Linton, any comment? She opened her mouth, then stopped. The words that came weren't her defense, or her anger. They were a quiet echo of her own most famous post, rewritten without venom. If you've never been here, she said, you have no idea how hard it is. Then she turned away, down the steps, into the crush of the crowd.